So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Extreme Hangout. Fantastic to have you all joining us. Another extraordinary panel, and actually the one I think I've probably been looking forward to the most. We at Extreme International are, of course, a sports business, and it has taken us through being in this wonderful world of extreme and adventure sports. That connection, we couldn't extract ourselves from our relationship with nature. And we've brought together a fantastic group of panelists for you to tell you about their stories and how sport and their love of the environment and their passion and their work that they're doing in it is also super interconnected, and hopefully inspire all of you guys as well out there to get involved and use your love of sports and adventure and see what journey that takes you on as well. So I'm going to hand over to my fabulous friend, Dan, who works at the Blue Marine Foundation, an organization incredibly close to my heart and I'm deeply proud of my links with. He is going to lead our panelists here today. But let's put our hands together, and the warmest welcome to all of you, and such huge appreciation and gratitude for you being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Amber and Al and Extreme. This is truly beautiful to be here, and a welcome relief from the Blue Zone. This panel is very kind of close to my heart. My family used to take me to the beach when I was a kid, and they'd sort of have to bribe me to get out of the sea. The sea was a huge part of my life when I was young. My father sailed around the world and for 15 years and lived in Galapagos and the Tuamotus, and my whole childhood was, learning about what he'd done and the boats. He didn't really talk about it much, but he had a lot of beautiful shells, and he didn't really want us to become sailors because he thought we'd leave and he'd never see us. But I sort of circumnavigated that and got very heavily into surfing as a kid. And I sort of have been heavily into surfing ever since. And I think, when you're young and you're surfing, like your whole focus is on waves and catching the biggest waves and the best waves, and that's what you're chasing and you're looking for. And then over time, it was like I started getting really drawn to just solitude and being alone in places without many people, and the kind of quality of the waves began to recede in importance. And what became really interesting to me was all of the other things around the marine life, the different habitats like kelp and seagrass, and the fish. And I sort of started to get heavily into freediving. I was living in an island chain off the north coast of Scotland called the Orkneys, and I was freediving whenever the surf was bad, and I sort of realized that it was a intact marine ecosystem like I hadn't really seen anywhere else in the UK, and there were lots of fish and big fish, and the whole place was alive. And it sort of left me with a really powerful conviction that was how I wanted to spend my time. I wanted to spend my time trying to bring that back, and that sort of led me after, on a slightly circuitous route into working in conservation, which I've been doing for almost 10 years now. And I work for the Blue Marine Foundation. We create marine protected areas. We restore marine habitat. There's about 50 of us now working in about 45 different conservation projects all over the world, and I'm really proud of the organization. I love what we do. I love the people, especially the young people from all over the place who are getting into conservation at a much younger age than I did, and it's going to be amazing to see what they do and how they go on and shape the future. But this panel isn't really about me, it's about these panelists, and I'll pass over to each of them in turn to introduce themselves, and then we'll go to some questions and probably go to some questions from the audience at the end. So, Kevin, would you like to go first?
Okay, hello, my name is Kevin Omtai, and I'm a climate activist and also environmentalist based in Kenya in a place called Soy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vassar Seidel. I co-lead a digital media nonprofit called the Oxygen Project. We run environmental campaigns. We do impact campaigns. One of them is to get a moratorium and prevent deep seabed mining from going forward in the next year, which would be a new extractive industry open in our international waters, which is over half of the entire surface. And we also do activist trainings, and we do environmental literacy. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I'm just excited to be here with you guys today.
Hi, my name's Sam Taylor. I'm also from Kenya, and slightly in the reverse to Dan, I've been involved in conservation for a long time, and that has led me into adventure and adventure sport rather than the other way around. Essentially, my background is in protected area management, specifically initially rhino and species protection. But what my main focus is now on rangers welfare, and developing an understanding of rangers as an industry. These are, I heard someone quite eloquently put it the other day, that we're in a war against climate change, and our allies are the rainforests and the savannas and what have you. And if that's the case, the rangers are essentially the foot soldiers. And it's, to me, quite shocking that it doesn't exist as an industry. The welfare standards are appalling, but also I believe there's more registered hairdressers in the UK than there are rangers on the entire planet. Now these are the guys who are protecting the areas that are going to ultimately save humankind. So that was a big part of getting into this. And some of the ways we've done this is take part in extreme endurance events and expeditions all over the world, on horseback, climbing mountains, running ultramarathons through the desert, and that's been a means and a platform where we could not only raise money for rangers' welfare, but also a platform to tell their story and get some recognition for them. So yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, my name is Sierra Quitty-Quit. I am a professional extreme skier and a climate activist. I've been communicating around climate for almost 20 years. My first foray was myspace.com/skiers against global warming. I'm now the CEO and founder of Time for Better, a climate communications agency, and I co-lead a nonprofit organization called Plastic Free Fridays. I think my intimacy with the snowpack, since I was a very, very young child, allowed me to realize, alongside my community, the impacts of climate change very, very early. And so my community, that's not only dependent on snowfall for our fun, but also our livelihoods, has been devastated by climate change and will continue to be devastated by climate change. So I'm very much feeling the urgency of this critical decade, and I'm here to lead with an open heart and an optimistic perspective, because it's been scientifically proven that hope and optimism will lead us towards collective action.
Hi, I'm Louis Cole. I guess I'd call myself a filmmaker, adventure filmmaker. I've been making YouTube videos for the last 10 years, and it's been travel focused, but along that journey of just traveling the world, seeing different cultures, being out in nature, it ties really intrinsically in with caring about the world, caring about what's around us, and feeling an excitement to be able to share my experiences and also challenge people to look at how they view the world and how we can be a big part of fighting a lot of injustices and looking after the planet that we live in. And yeah, I'll stop there.
And Vasa, we were chatting before, and you were saying, like, you know, as a kid, you like your family sort of led you into a lot of these pursuits that you do in relation to the water, like fly fishing and surfing and that kind of stuff. It'd be great to elaborate on that, and I also want to hear, you know, through that, how it's going in the fight against deep sea mining. I've seen a lot of good stuff going on, you know, a moratorium being declared by France, and yeah, it'd be great to hear more about that.
Ooh, double mic. Oh, no. Okay, thank you. So yeah, we were talking about before of how I really fell in love with nature and how that led me to the work I do now in climate and specifically around the deep sea. So ever since I could walk, my dad had me on a pair of skis. It's his passion, and I'm so grateful to him because it's my passion as well. And then my grandfather had me, as soon as I could walk, in the streams with him, learning how to fly fish. And I've been doing outdoor sports, anything I can stand on or strap to my feet or go and do, I find joy in, especially being outdoors. In my later years, I learned, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, so we were a little bit landlocked. And when I graduated from high school, I said, I want to go learn to sail. My grandfather is a big-time sailor, won the America's Cup. And I said, I want to go learn to sail. So I went down to the BVI's, lived on a boat, got my captain's license, and sailed for the summer there, and then went to college. And then more recently, I decided a few years ago I wanted to learn to surf, and I fell in love with the ocean. I've always gravitated towards being in bodies of water, always gravitated towards being in the ocean, which I find now that that's actually scientific for grounding, and you have an ion exchange from your body to the planet and body to the water. And so that's probably why all of us gravitate to those areas, because we need to recharge our bodies physically for our health and for our well-being to nature. And we're probably indoors way too much. So I now skate, I surf, I do, like I said, anything I can do with my body outdoors. And this has really not only been, I guess, the impetus to me kind of having this flip of the switch when I had learned about deep sea mining to me being at Madrid COP, which was the Oceans COP, and finding out that the world was, at that time, just about to pass regulations that would launch a new extractive industry in our global commons. And do not mistake, if you've heard greenwashing, do not mistake this for a green solution. It will absolutely be devastating, exacerbate climate change. It's our largest carbon sinks. It will exacerbate biodiversity loss, and it could potentially have effects that would even stop our currents from flowing eventually, as we are completely destabilizing the fundamental building block to ocean health and climate health and the world. So I can go on a soapbox for a long time about deep sea mining, and if you'd like to learn more, please find me after. But just to say that nature plays an integral role, not only in inspiring us to do the work in climate, but also sustaining us. So I find that you need these things that re-energize you. So that's my long but also short answer.
Thank you. Thanks, Vasa. Kevin, it would be great to hear more about your journey into activism, what motivated you to start doing it, but also what you do and how it's going.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So for me, yeah, it started because I live in a village where kind of these people doesn't understand what is climate change. So you've been find most of them, they have been thinking climate change is a curse or it's not real. So I've been the one organizing most of the Friday for Future in my country. And living in a village, it was very difficult to create awareness about climate change. So I had to look for something which is special and something which my community love. And because me being fan of watching football, I was playing rugby the time I was in college. And I came up, I said, let me start something. And the time, because I was able to attend last year COP, and watching Forest Green, one of the greenest club around the world. The time I was returning back home on 29 December, I organized an environmental tournament. And it was a kind of a 2 days event where we had a lot of people were able to come, but not that much. And after that event, because it was creating awareness about climate change in my community, this year during Earth Day, I organized another event which was a week environmental tournament, a week. And more than 32 teams, they were able to show up. 2,000 people were able to show up, including politicians, because this year we had like general election. And I decided to use that platform to create awareness about climate change. And I'm very happy because one of the politicians who was running, he said, Kevin, please, can you come and write for me a manifesto about climate change? And it was a kind of thing which I was able to meet new people. And through that, we were able to select ambassador and more people, because having 2,000 people attending March every day and watching, and our aim was before March, you need to talk to them about climate change. We were planting with them trees, and we were trying to educate them more about climate change. And through that, that is the reason why I say I need to have this environmental tournament every year. Because living in a community where most of my people in my community loving watching, especially English Premier League, Arsenal, Manchester, all of that. So I started to use that. Let me use this opportunity to create an awareness about climate change. And I'm very happy because through that we are able also to run like different initiative, environmental school tour, which I've been doing currently. Before I came to COP, I had to finish my 16th school. And around 7,000 kids have been able to benefit, 500 teacher, and not only school but hospital, because I wanted to create awareness, not only in school but in police station, in hospital, because we have been trying to use strike, but strike doesn't work in my community, because when you call yourself you are an activist, especially in our country, Kenya, it's like a rebel. So you had to come up with another, maybe you call yourself a climate champion or other things. So that's the thing I've been using in my community, and it went very well because Forest Green were able to retweet one of my posts in social media. I say, wow, I think this is my achievement. And having many politicians attending one of my events, I say, I think now I'm able to conquer them. Yeah.
Amazing. More power to you. That's fantastic. Sam, we were chatting before about some of the stuff that you've done to raise money for rangers, including climbing Everest. It'd be great to hear not just about that, massive achievement, but sort of how you have used adventure sports to support that community and how it's going, the sort of adversity that's faced. I think it's a massively underrepresented, under-talked about group of people, and as you say, that it's almost like the front lines and they're the custodians, and as you say, it's like it's a pretty intense environment for them. So it'd be great to hear more about that.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, adversity is what we're trying to demonstrate. I'm terrified of heights. I've got crippling vertigo. So one of the concept of doing extreme sports and encouraging other people to get involved in them is, to a certain degree, about demonstrating solidarity with what these guys on the ground are doing. The statistics behind wildlife rangers, particularly globally, is that there's one killed in the line of duty every 3 days. Every 2 days, there's one injured to an extent where they can't work again. The statistics are appalling. And so one of the sort of means to do this is to put yourself through a little bit of hardship, demonstrate solidarity. I'm afraid I'm appalling at social media, but one thing these expeditions have done is encourage people to get out and amongst the wilderness. Perhaps some of the sort of apathy and why we're sort of right on the precipice right now with saving the planet fundamentally is a lot of young people haven't got out there and seen it. you know, climb mountains, ridden across Patagonia, run through jungles, or whatever it is. You don't have to hurt yourself doing it. But you know, if all the kids got off their phones and got out and looked around them, we might not be in the panic we are now. It's and it's an amazing means. Sport and adventure is an amazing means to get young people out there and appreciating what's around them, and then understanding that it's disappearing very, very quickly. So yeah, the sport's been very pertinent in many regards, and links directly back to the rangers. It's very easy to go to these wilderness areas and find these guys who are on the ground. And you're in extreme situations. What you realize is these guys are in extreme situations every day, but perhaps the most selfless job of all is trying to keep it all alive. So that's the story we're trying to tell and the awareness we're trying to create.
Thanks, Sam. And Louis, you use social media in a really positive way to connect people with the natural world, and you translate your own adventures for the benefit of millions of people. How did you kind of fall into doing that, and what do you see? What's the value of that medium to sort of to connect people with nature again, and to I guess inspire them to care about it and protect it and all of the things that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, just off the back of what you were sharing, I was in Kenya last year working with the Sheldrick Foundation, and they showed us their rangers. We went to the ranger camp, and I did a post just with this absolute. I was in awe and a gratitude of the work they were doing, and I did a post, and it was like we did a bunch of posts like with elephants and stuff, but that was one of the posts which it resonated most with my audience, and they were commenting on that photo and just sharing a bit of what the work they were doing there. So I just wanted to thank you for the work you're doing, because it's so critical, and if there's any way afterwards we could chat about supporting what you're doing, I'd love to. But yeah, I mean, going back to your question, yeah, I kind of stumbled into the whole social media thing. I think it was just good timing that it was in the rise of the early days of YouTube really exploding, and a new medium, a new platform on the internet. And obviously there's lots of different platforms now. But I've just found it to be such an amazing, and even, you know, the more the global South and developing countries are getting access to higher speed internet and devices, it's becoming an even more democratic kind of way of sharing. You know, back in the day, traditional media, there's so many barriers to entry to get messages out there, to get your voice out there, and I'm just so excited about being able to use a platform to share stories. I remember really early on, just on the, as we've got two other people from Kenya here, like it was a project. So I was in Kenya, and I was meeting some street kids that had moved into a home, and they were working with this other organization. And I was like, look, the data to upload a video to YouTube wouldn't be that expensive. So I got one of the kids to share his story on my video, just share about his life a little bit. And my audience, and I was doing daily videos at the time, so for a long time I did every single day. It was kind of brutal, but I did every single day, filmed my day, uploaded that night, started again the next day, just relentlessly. And which I don't want to do now, but so I uploaded the video that night, and it was thousands of comments replying to this kid. His name is Teddy, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, because he just said something really profound. He was, I can't remember the exact words he used, but it was like a really, he said something about being proud of himself. And it was such a powerful thing for kids from the UK, the US, like the Western world, who often struggle with self-esteem. They were like really touched. Anyway, the next day I showed him the comments, and he was like, getting really blown away. And I then said, oh, have you got anything to say back? And it was this really interesting back and forth on my videos between my audience and him. And then at the end of the trip, I said, look, why don't you set up a YouTube channel, and I'll get everyone to subscribe. And like 10,000 people went over and subscribed to his YouTube channel. Unfortunately, they didn't have the infrastructural funds or whatever to maintain it. But I think there's something in that story of like, there's this potential to share stories from around the world, from people experiencing different lives. And I think there's that fascination and excitement that we are this global community. And tying it back in with kind of climate change activism, I think, like someone was saying, like the more you get out there and explore the world and encourage young people to do that, I think there's inevitably going to be this excitement and passion to protect it. And I think, I think it's not slowing down. I think this ability to create content, to share content, to consume content, obviously sometimes it's a bit too much, and we do need to encourage people to get off their phones and go outside. But I think there is such power in it, and such a powerful medium to share stories, and yeah, it's incredible. Like what that I guess we're all sort of guinea pigs in the use of social media, and we're sort of learning. And I guess it has, for some of us who didn't grow up with it, it can be quite daunting. But the sort of use of it as a global environmental tool to like inform people, that's amazing. It's cool to meet someone on the forefront of that and see the positivity of it. I guess that's super cool. And Sierra, you talked a little about the mountains and the climate change sort of indicators that you see, and how your life as an extreme skier takes you into that climate, and how it's sort of everything to you. And as an ocean person, I'm acutely aware to the sort of indicators of that I see. And I free dive a lot at home, and I'll be out there for an hour and I'll see like 2 fish, and it's kind of sad. I live in like a really depleted ecosystem in the UK. What are some of the things you see, and what's being done in the skiing community to address them? Like, I know there's a load of amazing activist groups, and it'd be great to hear more about your work and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I came into the snow sports world as a professional over a decade ago as a young gun, and very, very excited to make my stake on the world as a professional athlete. And right as that was happening, we really experienced 3 winters right in a row with devastating snowfall. And that led to a huge sort of economic collapse of my industry. And, that's when I went through my personal transition from what I like to call ego to eco, understanding that it maybe wasn't about what I could extract from the industry. It was maybe how I could help and use this platform. And from there, I teamed up with Protect Our Winters, which is an amazing global organization working on climate change advocacy. They've been really influential on policy work in the United States. They take outdoor-minded individuals and professional athletes to lobby with their representatives. So I was lobbying with some of my leaders in D.C. For the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. For those of you that don't know, this is the largest piece of legislation ever passed in United States history. It's not a perfect piece of legislation, but it put nearly $400 billion towards climate action. Which is huge in the United States. So, that's an example of how athletes being filtered by well-organized NGOs can create really influential action. And because you mentioned free diving, I have also been incredibly influenced by the ocean. Every professional skier actually wishes they were a surfer. So whenever the snow melts, I head off to the ocean somewhere. And I had the chance a few years ago to visit my ancestral homeland of the Philippines. And I was so excited to dive, and I located on site to some of the best diving in the world. I stuck my head underwater, and I was so confused because there was nothing there, nothing at all. And I thought that maybe I'd been brought to the wrong location, and then it was made clear to me that it was just dead, all of it. And it was dead all throughout the Philippines. And then I started to look on maps globally of what's happening to the ocean, and I started to think, wow, this isn't just the crisis of the mountains, it's a crisis of the ocean, and of course a global crisis. But to end on a positive, more hopeful note, obviously, there's a lot of incredible technology. People are growing corals. And here in Egypt, the Red Sea is actually being declared a UNEP International Hope Site. This right here, just steps away from this location, is the healthiest, most resilient underwater life in the world. If all the coral in the world were to bleach, this would be the last living coral, and that's due to the high salination, and there's amazing organizations like HEPCA working locally to protect it, and this just makes me so thrilled to get to stick my head underwater here and see rainbows of corals and fish and health, and that's what keeps me personally going as an activist.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I think for everyone here, you know, the chance to sort of dip your head in the sea before going into the blue zone or going into your agenda for the day is, you know, it's just incredibly uplifting and really good for your physical and mental health to be around intact habitats with lots of life. And you know, that's scientifically proven across the board, but it'd be good to explore that topic just a little bit. Like you know, like surfing's something that's I've always come back to since I was, you know, a little kid, and it's something that's kept me like semi-healthy throughout my life, and it kind of provides this, I think, a really healthy state of mind. You know, I think when I was young, for a bit it was like an escape, and then it was like, hold on, this isn't an escape at all. It's like a coming into something much bigger than you, and that's what's so incredible about it. And I mean, I guess all of us, you know, that sort of link between physical health and planetary health is quite strong. It would be great to just explore that and think more about and learn more from some of you about some of the stuff, you know, you've done physically, and how that, I guess, challenge sort of helps to meet the challenge of what we're dealing